When I think of classic masculine fragrances, the first genre that pops into my head is aromatic fougère. And if you're also a fan of this genre like I am, you're going to want to stick around and check out this video. Hey, welcome back to Real Scent Review, guys. So the aromatic fougère, it's one of my very favorite genres, or should I say sub-genres, in all of perfumery. And today I'm going to show you eight of my very favorite, eight of my very favorite aromatic fougère fragrances. So first of all, what is a fougère fragrance? Well, a fougère fragrance is a perfume that's designed to smell like a fern. Now, it's strange because ferns don't actually have a smell. So a fougère fragrance is the perfumer's interpretation of what they think a fern would smell like. So usually these fragrances are going to be green, foresty, maybe herbal in some aspects as well. But traditionally, they're based around the notes of lavender, tonka bean, and oak moss. Now, there's a lot of variation here. Not all fougère fragrances adhere strictly to these three note profiles. There's a lot of variation, like I said, going on. And one of the subgenres of fougère is aromatic fougère, also known as barbershop style fragrances. So this takes the traditional mixture of lavender, tonka bean, and oak moss and adds usually aromatics, herbs, and woods, and some spices to the mixture as well. Although again, like I said, lots of variation, and not every fragrance in this genre is strictly going to adhere to those rules, let's say. Now I'm briefly going to touch on a very similar genre here called the chypre genre. Very similar to the fougère genre, only chypres are going to include more floral, usually citruses, and some leather and some labdanum maybe mixed in as well. But this list is all about aromatic fougères specifically. Just like there's a lot of ambiguity out there in regards to fragrances that fall into the fougère category or the aromatic fougère subcategory, not all the fragrances on this following list are going to strictly fit inside the box of what is usually considered to be an aromatic fougère. However, every member on this list does share that classic masculine barbershop type DNA in one way or another. So the first one on this list is going to be Homme by Jourdan. This one here based around the notes of anise, tarragon, oak moss, and lavender. So this is a classic aromatic fougère. It's been swallowed by history mostly at this point, and not a lot of people have heard of this, at least people in my generation. This one here is absolutely unmistakably an aromatic fougère, but it turns the warm spices way up. First and foremost, it's the tarragon. So this is like a really warm, spicy licorice with some sweetness to it. And we also get, of course, oak moss. In this particular bottle, there's a lot of real oak moss because this bottle here itself is from 1989. And so we're gonna get that woody, damp aspect of the oak moss. Love, love, love it. And of course, there's the aromatic, slightly sweet, spicy lavender as well. But overarching everything is some anise. So anise is going to give this an extremely powdery characteristic. Out of all the members of this list, this one is going to be the most dated smelling. I don't normally like to call aromatic fougères dated, but this is one that might actually fall into that category. It does smell extremely dated. I can't see anybody under the age of 45 enjoying this, with very few exceptions. But if you're a die-hard fan of aromatic fougères, you gotta pick this one up. Homme by Jourdan. Second one on this list is gonna be Homme by Paco Rabanne. So the main notes in this one are gonna be rosemary, honey, lavender, and oak moss. So yeah, this is an aromatic fougère through and through. It's a very soapy one. We get in the opening some spicy herbal rosemary, of course, paired with that soapy aromatic lavender. There's a little bit of woody, damp oak moss in the background as well. That's going to enhance that kind of soapiness. But hanging over all of the other notes is a balsamic, semi-sweet honey. It's almost a little touch, I don't know, animalic, I want to say, in the same way that tobacco, raw tobacco, can sometimes give off a little bit of a funky vibe. I totally get a little bit of that from the honey in this one. This particular bottle is from the late 1990s, so it has a ton of oak moss in it. It's very prominent. I'm not really sure how the new bottles are, but this one here, man, absolutely fantastic. Again, if you're a fan of aromatic fougères, you have to know this one. I'm sure a lot of you might even have some vintage bottles in your collections as well. Homme by Paco Rabanne. The next one is going to be Loewe Esencia pour Homme Eau de Toilette. The main notes in this one are going to be pine needles, bergamot, lavender, and leather. So some purists out there might be more inclined to refer to this one as more of a chypre because of its inclusion of citrus and leather. I don't know, this totally still reminds me of that classic aromatic fougère style. So mainly in the top, we're gonna get some very sharp citrusy bergamot, very, very piercing bergamot. And that's gonna be mixed with some pine needles. So we're going to get reminded of the smell of a conifer forest, pine needles, almost minty in a way, very coniferous, delicious as far as I'm concerned. And we're gonna get a touch of that aromatic, kind of spicy lavender and some smooth, almost cooling leather in the dry down. Very powerful fragrance. It reminds me of kind of a better version of the original Polo Green. So, you know, very herbal, very sharp, and I think it's a fantastic and very underrated Loewe fragrance. Next one on the list is going to be Beau de Jour by Tom Ford. So the main notes in this one are going to be lavender, oak moss, and vanilla. So this is what I would call a modernized take on an aromatic fougère fragrance. We get that lavender. In particular, the lavender in this fragrance is very concentrated, very deep. We get all the different facets of the lavender note. It's a little bit soapy, it's spicy, aromatic, a little bit licoricey, kind of sweet in a way, mixed with some oak moss. Again, the oak moss in this, I'm not sure if it's real. I'm not sure, you know, the proportions that are used in this particular fragrance because of, you know, IFRA regulations, but I certainly detect the oak moss in this one, you know, very prominently. But it dries down to a very nice sweet vanilla. It's not overly sweet, it's not cloying, but it's just sweetened up enough to where, you know, someone who might not even like aromatic fougères may enjoy this one. It's modernized a bit. It's not quite as sharp and totally barbershop-y as a lot of other fragrances on this list. Awesome performance on this one too. And you know, it's one of the few aromatic fougères that I would wear in the dead of winter because I think this stands up to the cold air very well. This is Beau de Jour by Tom Ford. So the next one on this list is going to be Platinum Egoïste by Chanel. The main notes in this one are going to be galbanum, geranium, lavender, and cedar. So right off the bat, galbanum. It's an herb, it's very sharp, it's almost metallic, I think, hence the name Platinum Egoïste. That's what you're going to get right up front in this fragrance, some galbanum, sharp, metallic. But as this goes drying down, a creamy geranium starts to develop. So it's going to smell, for lack of a better term, a minty, creamy rose without being overtly floral. You know, this dries down with a little bit of that aromatic lavender, but mostly in the dry down, I get a lot of cedar. So it's a woody aromatic fougère. You know, this is not going to be mind-blowingly exotic or anything, but yeah, this phenomenal fragrance, super clean. This is a very fresh, very just clean aromatic fougère. If I could say it like this would be like a blue fragrance of the aromatic fougère category, fresh out of the shower, barbershop fragrance here. And man, it just doesn't get much more classy than this, Platinum Egoïste by Chanel. Next one on this list, the big boy from 1988. This is Jazz by Yves Saint Laurent. The main notes in this one, to my nose, are nutmeg, carnation, tobacco, and oak moss. So, whew. Amazing fragrance here. This opens up very sharp and spicy with some nutmeg. There's also a floral characteristic, like a spicy floral that's going to be coming from carnation to my nose. So in the opening, very spicy, a very spicy aromatic fougère here. Almost leaning oriental, if I could say that, but only in the opening. Because this dries down with some beautiful, woody, soft, damp oak moss, and there's a hint of tobacco as well. Now, it's not smoky tobacco. It's not rich, dark, sweet tobacco like you find in Cuban cigars, for example. This is more of that like blonde, really dry tobacco variety that just provides like a dry, hay-like characteristic. Touch of sweetness in this, I think, coming from that tobacco. This is very, to me, symbolic of jazz music because it's an aromatic fougère, yes. At its heart, it's clean, masculine, fresh, classy, but because of those spicy notes and the note of tobacco, those notes almost give this a little bit of an exoticism, I want to say, just like jazz music. Very abstract and experimental, yet classy and rounded in a way at the same time. Awesome fragrance. In fact, I would call this almost the perfect aromatic fougère fragrance. This, by the way, is one of the classic bottles. It's not from the very first version of YSL Jazz, which was released in 1988. This bottle itself is from 1997, back when Sanofi was the bottle manufacturer for YSL. So yeah, so this particular batch is still technically a classic batch. YSL, however, in fairly recent years, has re-released this as part of the La Collection line, along with Rive Gauche, along with Homme, and I think M7. But yeah, the newer versions, I don't think are the same. If you can swing it at all, I highly recommend picking up a classic bottle of this excellent, excellent fragrance. Next one on the list is going to be Bogart Signature. So the main notes in this one are going to be nutmeg, orange, lemon blossom, and oak moss. So again, this is a classic bottle. This is from 1978, and I honestly haven't smelled the newer versions. I'm not really sure how they smell. So this is going to be based off the original batch that I have here. Opens up very spicy with nutmeg, but also some lemon blossom. So the lemon blossom is going to give it a very sharp, citrusy characteristic, but also an extremely soapy accord. So if you think of things like green Irish tweed, the lemon verbena and green Irish tweed gives it that very sharp citrus soapiness. We get a very similar accord in this one here. Like I said, mixed with that spicy nutmeg and the orange in the beginning. Almost gives a little bit of a boozy liqueur vibe to my nose. And this goes drying down to oak moss, woody, damp, beautiful oak moss, of which there is a ton included in this vintage bottle. Again, I don't know how the newer bottles compare, but yeah, man, Bogart Signature. This is one that rarely gets talked about, but one of my very favorites in the aromatic fougère category. There's something very exotic about this. It's just definitely through and through an aromatic fougère, but there's something just special about this one. I really enjoy this. And by the way, this vintage bottle, like I said, from the late 70s, this only cost me like 40 euros, and it's a 95 milliliter bottle. So I mean, you can find really good deals out there, guys. Bogart Signature. Last but not least, this is Bon Monsieur by Rogue Perfumery. The main notes in this one are going to be lavender, carnation, oak moss, and fir. So we're going to get that beautiful aromatic lavender, the spicy, floral, creamy carnation, the wonderfully damp, woody oak moss, and some fir that's going to give it a little bit of a piney, woody characteristic as well. This here, to me, is like the final boss of aromatic fougère fragrances. It is my favorite. It is absolutely stunning. It reminds me of a classic aromatic fougère called Drakkar Noir, which, if you've noticed, I have not included on this list. I have not included it because this one here smells almost exactly like it, yet at the same time, this blows Drakkar Noir out of the water. The notes in this one are so much more deep than Drakkar Noir. The performance, by the way, on this one is spectacular. It's just a deeper, three-dimensional fragrance where Drakkar Noir smells great, yes, but it's more one-dimensional, and the scent of that one these days is so fleeting. But yeah, you know, we get absolutely kind of like the shell, the DNA of Drakkar Noir in this, but the lavender's so deep, so spicy, yet at the same time soapy, aromatic. We get the carnation, It's really spicy, very creamy, a little bit floral, yet at the same time, uber masculine. And that oak moss, like I said, there's a depth to this, the dampness and the woodiness. By the way, Manuel Cross, the perfumer and owner of this brand, is known for his use of oak moss, despite IFRA regulations. Now, that particular theme is a little bit controversial, and maybe I'll talk about that more in depth in another video. And to top it all off, we get that beautiful piney fur, my favorite part of this fragrance, honestly. So yeah, this, man, if you don't already have this and you're an Aromatic Fougère fan, you gotta pick this one up. The prices, honestly, are very reasonable on this, considering the insanely good quality and the great performance. I don't know, this has to be one of the best fragrances I've ever smelled in my life. If I had to get rid of all of the other Aromatic Fougères in my collection, this is the one that I would keep, hands down. It is a perfect Aromatic Fougère fragrance. Bon Monsieur by Rogue Perfumery. Anyway, guys, that's been my list of 8 Aromatic Fougère fragrances that I consider to be just slam dunk, home run, out of the park, amazing. So yeah, I know that there is a whole world of Aromatic Fougère fragrances out there. Unfortunately, I've not been able to include all of them, but I've hand selected 8 that I feel to be emblematic of what a real Aromatic Fougère is, and some that have a little unique twist on them. But yeah, all in all, you really can't go wrong with any of these 8 Aromatic Fougères. Leave it in the comments below, guys. How many of these fragrances do you guys know? How many do you own? What are your favorite Aromatic Fougère fragrances? I love the interaction with you guys. I love reviewing for you guys. And until next time, keep it real.